my advisees who do end up in English or in especially different majors in the humanities, I want to confirm for them that that can be a really good choice of a major or a minor, but that they also need to be particularly deliberate in thinking about what do they maybe want to do after graduation and how can they position themselves well.
Occasionally there's students that don't want anything to do with the major at all. They see it as a good major, a good discipline, but their heart lies somewhere else. And that's either going to happen in grad school or they've pretty well got their mind made up about a occupation that they may not use the content of the major, but may use the skills of the major.
I like to ask students the question, if you could imagine yourself in 5 years and 10 years, where would you like to be? What would you like to be doing? And as we're talking about that, we talk about how what's the magic wand version? If everything worked out exactly like how you wanted it to be, what would be an okay version?
I try to tease out where they're at, make recommendations. Have you considered this resource? Have you considered career services? Have you considered a Tri-Beta event where alumni come in and same position you were at 4 years ago, but this is where their decision went. So trying to pepper opportunities and let them ask questions and try to be as honest as I can. Telling them what I hear I think they say without me telling them what to do.
Most of my advisees go on to be English teachers, so one thing that I always say to them is, okay, how is your resume going to look different from all of the other people who are brand new teachers that have just graduated from college?
For example, if they want to go into med school, it's kind of like, well, what are you doing to favor that your application rises above the rest? It isn't just a GPA anymore. It's work experiences, it's interacting with countries of lesser economic health benefit.
That gives me a good picture of what the student's anticipating, which then helps me think through, well, how do I really get them set up to be ready to take those steps? What internships or study abroad experiences might be good? How might a minor support their course of study? Those kind of questions.
What are you doing to demonstrate that this school wants to invest lots of money and time into you? So, it's time to stop serving at McDonald's, or even it's time to stop being a nanny, which may pay very well. And if you're really serious about your career, what are you doing now?
In the English department, some of our majors require an internship. Even those that don't, I usually encourage students to consider an internship. Here's how to go about finding those opportunities.
I know some students, they love to work at camp every summer, but they want to be an engineer. Well, that's awesome, but I think an advisor can speak into that a little bit and say, maybe your last 2 summers of college, you need to think about doing internships in a lab or internships in your field.
Even with first-year students, I'll broach that conversation, and I'll suggest different kinds of on-campus opportunities, writing for the Clarion, considering being a TA for a class, that the kinds of things that don't sound too threatening, that might be a way of building their resume, helping them explore things that they like.
In other majors where the job path isn't quite so clear, I think you still have to have those conversations. You still have to think about, okay, what are you going to do over the summer that's going to help you make contacts, get better at whatever skills you have that you're trying to work toward.
Part of it is academic as far as GPAs, and as harsh as that sometimes sound, if they're thinking about going into some grad program, they have to have a GPA. It's just simply too competitive. And if not, have you thought about other things you might like to do with this major?
I'm able to give examples of what other students have done. You could combine a co-curricular activity with some extra classes, like you could do the student newspaper and then take a couple extra journalism classes, and now you have kind of a selling point that you're able to do co-curricular coaching for the newspaper, for example. Or if someone does a sport, I'll say, hey, have you thought about, I know you love soccer, have you thought about maybe taking a couple of coaching classes? Or have you thought about in the summer maybe getting some experience?
When we meet second semester, talking about their fall registration, but then conversations about what are you doing this summer seem pretty natural. And I know that it's mostly a matter of finding a job that'll pay as well as possible, because they have to pay, it costs a lot of money to be here. But I'll usually suggest some ideas of not necessarily paying things that a student might do.
We start talking about that really soon. And again, trying to think about, okay, how can you be strategic with your time and your opportunities over the summer? You know, if they want to do TCO or some kind of ministry opportunity, okay, let's think about how that also contributes to your preparation as a teacher.
Sometimes students have, you know, I want to in 5 years from now own an NBA team. Well, that's not going to happen. So how do we walk back to more realistic goals and helping them really think realistically about how we get from point A to B to C to D is a lot of the work of advising.
I think we maybe get heard a little bit more as advisors compared to maybe parents or other folks because we've seen what's worked for other students. And I think that's a powerful story if we're able to tell that to our current students. Here's what so-and-so did, or here's what a former student did, and this is how it worked out for them.